Dungeons & Dragons is getting yet another live experience. What exactly is a live experience? Well, we'll explain that in this video.
Tell me!
Today, Vibrant Studios announced that it would open Dungeons & Dragons: The Immersive Quest in Toronto next month. The Immersive Quest is a live experience in which visitors choose one of 4 character classes and then embark on an adventure to retrieve a magic gem from a dragon. The experience mixes theater, videos, interactive multimedia stations, and choose-your-own-adventure style choices into a 60-minute live play experience in which there appears to be very little, if any, dice rolling. If you've ever been through True Dungeon at Gen Con, Origins, or another convention, it sounds a bit like that, only with a little less LARPing. The Immersive Quest will take place in a 15,000 square foot space and will have a marketplace and thematic food and drink for folks to enjoy after they've completed their quest. The experience itself appears to be set within Waterdeep. Players will set off from the Yawning Portal Inn, and the gift shop is framed as the Waterdeep Market. Now, this Immersive Quest will launch in December in Toronto and will be around through March before moving on to another North American city. Now, live experiences like the Immersive Quest seem to be the next way that Hasbro is pushing Dungeons & Dragons as a wider fantasy franchise. The 20-Sided Tavern is a D&D improv show that takes place on Off-Broadway in New York City, complete with cast members rolling a massive oversized D20 and acting their way through choices made by the audience. Universal Studios Hollywood is also launching a D&D experience at their Universal Fan Fest nights. This sounds a lot like the Immersive Quest, only on a much smaller scale. Now, if you're a Dungeons & Dragons fan, things like the Immersive Quest seems like a cool experience on the surface. It's a way to express your love of D&D, and it seems like a fun distraction for an afternoon, albeit one with a $45 to $90 price tag. That's in Canadian dollars, by the way. However, our major concern is that it shows how Hasbro doesn't really see Dungeons & Dragons as a tabletop game franchise, but rather as this wider fantasy franchise. Now, this isn't exactly new news. TSR tried to turn D&D into a big fantasy franchise with the D&D cartoon and a ton of toys, and that nearly bankrupted that company. We also saw Hasbro try to turn D&D into a cinematic movie franchise with the D&D Honor Among Thieves movie, which was supposed to launch this entire cinematic universe. Unfortunately, it flopped. It was a good movie, but it didn't perform up to box office standards, and it led to planned TV spin-offs getting canceled. Of course, Hasbro had more success with Baldur's Gate 3, which was one of the biggest video games of last year, and was also remarkably faithful to the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop game. Now, of course, our biggest concern here: the D&D franchise is going to drift further and further away from the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop RPG, which really should be focus of the whole D&D thing. Things like the Immersive Quest and 20-Sided Tavern are cool, and they can promote D&D, but I wonder if it's just a way to push this generic fantasy choose-your-own-adventure style experience instead of actually celebrating what D&D is and can be. So let us know what you think about things like the Immersive Quest in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and keep following Above the Table.